sign me up. All you gotta do is get Virginia City Comp plan. So, Ken never, man, he never quit, man. So, and he would tell y'all, man,
Thank you, Harvey.
don't cry down.
Give Harvey a hand real quick. That was from the heart. Here with you. Hey, Reggie, tell us a little bit about what Ken thought, or what he was thinking, and what he was talking to you about as far as this is it, what he got involved in, and anything that you want to share from your heart about Ken.
Absolutely. Ken was 100% with Lifeway. As a matter of fact, when he first told me about Lifeway, he told me about Steve and Gina Merritt. And I had never heard of Steve and Gina Merritt. He said, hey man, I've heard of them in a previous company. Very powerful, helped many people become millionaires. He said, man, this is it. And that was before the name This Is It became a name. So Ken had some vision. He was an incredible individual. Many of you have had a chance to be around him. He's a funny guy, and he's very serious, and he lived the way like no other. You know, Ken literally called me 4 days before he passed. And he said, Ken said, hey brother, I just want to let you know, I want to thank you, and I want to thank you and Z.R. Kendrick. You all were the first two to jump on this project with me. I can't say it enough. This was 4 days before he passed. Now I'm thinking that I'm going to have a conversation with Ken tomorrow. I said, hey man, you okay? He said, look, Reggie, I was given an 8% chance to live. I said, okay. He said, yeah, but you know, I said, oh, look, don't worry about that, man. I said, doctors don't know everything. I said, hey, all we got to do is keep pushing. He said, you're right. He said, I'm going to keep fighting. And I said, man, we got you. And at that point, I just knew I was going to have another conversation. He kind of sounded a little exhausted. He sounded a little exhausted. So I said, okay, we'll talk later. And that was the moment when I realized when I hung the phone, I really didn't know. And he got the phone, he was still in such joy. He had called me and told me his uncle had a chance to pray for him. He said, man, I feel good. Folks, to you all who are here today, there is something here today that you've never seen in your life. There's something here today you'll never see in your life. See, you don't have to buy that. You don't have to wonder if it's going to work. You don't have to wonder if this is real. You're going to have to buy the fact that something you cannot not see is real. And when you understand the power of that, the world will come and answer your prayers. Everyone wants the same things. Ken Robinson set a legacy in motion. And folks, there's nothing like it. When I was speaking with him, he was in hospice, and I had no idea. I had no idea. So think about it. This guy had the weight of the world on his shoulders. Literally, in my opinion. Had the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he went out and made this thing happen like nobody else. So with that being said, I say, if you're looking to do this, you have found the perfect vehicle to take you to the rest of, not only the rest of your life, but create legacies for you, not only you. You're talking about your kids. That is what's on the table. Thank you. Steve and Gina Merritt have led the way, and Ken always talked about them like they were a pure family. So I'm excited, you all, to understand the power of what we have our hands on. Thank you so much.
Guys, Ken didn't tell one of his best friends, not one of these friends knew for 2 years that he had the cancer, and he was told that he had 3 to 6 months to live. No one knew, not one person. Now, what's interesting is that he lived for 2 years, and everybody's been hurt that they weren't told, that he didn't tell them. But think about what would have been happening every day. They'd be calling him up, saying, how do you feel? Reminding him that he's sick. So he really played a bait and switch on everybody so that he could help create this legacy, not only for his family, but for all of these. All right? So I want you to understand that, well, this guy is throwing up in a bucket and then doing a Zoom. Okay? This is what was going on. He didn't tell any of us. But because nobody knew, he never had to be reminded that he was dying. Very interesting. The guy was very, he had a lot of wisdom. I mean, that is bare wisdom. Now, ZR, tell us a little bit of how you feel, what Ken was going through his mind, and what you got out of what's going on here, and where you believe we can all take this because of what Ken set and put into motion.
Well, first of all, Ken and I have a long-standing relationship. And we were doing Melaleuca a few years ago, and I really wanted to go back to Melaleuca. So I called Ken and I called Reggie and said, listen, let's get this thing going. But nobody moved on it, so I didn't move on it either. Ken called me a few months later, 4 times in 3 days. And I'm thinking, oh my God. So I finally picked the phone up, and he said, I don't know why you've been ghosting me. But get on Zoom, you're going to go to work and hung up the phone. And I'm thinking, what in the hell is he talking about? He had asked me 2 days prior to that, or texted me rather, text me your home address. That's all he said. So I did. So when I get on the Zoom, reluctantly, I'm thinking, here we go. So I listened to the Zoom, and it made too much sense. And the one thing I said, there's no way in hell I'm gonna let these guys do this without me. And come back 6, 7 months from now with egg on my face thinking, what was I thinking? So I did it reluctantly, but I did it because I was afraid they were gonna do it without me. So I remember him talking about this guy named Steve Merrick and their history. He's going to do a launch Zoom for us. And he's promoting about how we're going to do this thing working with Steve. Steve is the man. So Steve do a Zoom for us. And I'm thinking, Steve is really pretty powerful. So we had a second Zoom scheduled. And Steve couldn't show up. And I'm thinking, oh my God. So Ken stepped into play to do the presentation. And I'm thinking, you don't know what the hell you're doing? But he did it anyway. And I was shocked because we hadn't talked about a presentation. We were going to just listen, not do the presentation. So after I called, I said, how did you know? I didn't know what I was saying. I just had to say something. So a few weeks later, about a month later, we were working the business. And he said, look, I need you to help me do this presentation. I said, whoa, wait a minute, whoa. I'm not doing no Zoom presentation. I'll talk to 10,000 people, but I will not do a Zoom presentation. You know, I don't like computers. That's not my thing. I build houses. He said, but you can do it. I said, call somebody else, not me. And I asked him a question. I said, how much money you make? And he told me. I said, let me let you go. I got off that phone. I called a board meeting with ZZ and Z. I said, look, what the hell are we going to do with this? And at that moment, I realized how important this man was in my life. He pushed me really hard, probably harder than these guys. He was on my behind every day. What are you doing? Let's get busy. You need to get on the road. And he had this urgency. I didn't know what was happening with him, but he had this urgency in his tone and his actions and what he was doing that we didn't have time to play with this. We had never seen anything like this in our lifetime. And this was the one deal that we needed to do, and do it now. It's now another time. And so that was driven in our conversations all the time. Even when he was upset with these guys, he called me, I can't talk to them, I can talk to you. We had this relationship. And, you know, there were moments when he wasn't looking right, and I knew he wasn't looking right. He wasn't talking right. And they would call me and say, you know you can talk to him better than we can. Well, give him a call and find out what's going on. So I would call Ken, what the hell's going on with you? I took my medicine. Well, take your medicine. We got work to do. But never did I realize what was really going on. And for Ken Robinson to choose Lifeway, hear me out. This man was given 3 to 6 months to live. For him to choose Lifeway to close out his life, to leave a legacy for his family, we have no excuses. We are still breathing, still making it happen. We got jobs to do to make sure we share it with everybody. Doesn't matter what they say. Our job is to tell the story. If you don't have one, tell someone else's story. But we have got to get this thing done. So he's changed my life. I'm a beast now. You can't throw me off anymore. You can't say things that I will do this until I die.
Wow. All right, thank you, ZR. Chris, I don't want to call you out, but Chris is one of his best friends, and he didn't sign up for how long? About a year and a half. About a year and a half. So he's just recently been working with Ken, but Ken they've been best friends, kind of competitors, like in the same business, but different lines of sponsorship. They've always been, this is like one of the very first times they got to work together. But tell them what Ken would say to them.
Well, first of all, my partner was a champion. And I run a short time, so I was speaking 200 miles an hour with gusts up to 550, all right? So my partner always talked about you cannot make excuses and money at the same time, so you make a decision. And when he and I spoke, and you're looking at leading a team and what he was going at, or what we would say he was growing through, because sometimes in those challenges, you got to step up and make it happen, because he was a provider for his family. And he and I became friends back in 1994. When I walked in a room, running to the front row, he and I competed for the front row seats. And after a week of us pushing each other, knocking each other around, we agreed that I'd get the right and he'd get the left. And that's how we started. And we literally went to the top of that company the same weekend. We hit the top level of that company. And we both were speaking on stages with 10,000. And Steve, I'll tell you this. Thank you and Gina for reaching out to her. Because literally when I lost my father at age 21, back in 1987 when I came into this industry, I shed tears at that moment. But I was doing presentations the next day. Because I had to make it, because now my father could see me every day of my life in this industry. I had to win. Lost my mom, shed some tears, still briefly trained. And when I stood over there, even though I was at Ken's celebration, spoke at the celebration, all of that, the first tear I shared for my partner was right here watching that video. And the reason I shed a tear is only for a minute. Only for a minute, because I thought about when we were on stage with LifeWave, and I had put off the vacation. Even though I wanted it, I put it off because I'm saying, hey brother, I'm gonna be there with you and Lynn, celebrating, hanging out with you. And I shed a tear because physically, he's not gonna be there. But right now, we carry him with us in here. So he's gonna watch the actual movement. He's gonna watch the lives being changed. And where can you take something home with you today from who he was? First of all, we always talked about you cannot have a 7-figure appetite with a 3-figure mentality. You gotta raise your mentality. And so when I asked them to do presentations, I had never seen my partner do a presentation partnered up with Lee, and I'm like, that's new, because we used to be on stage independently, but I didn't know what he was going through at the time period, or why they were doing the presentations kind of tag team style. But it taught people in our group to do the same thing. All of a sudden, now we got people on actual camera with their spouses doing the presentations just like the Robinsons. What you do gets duplicated, good or bad. When I was asking them to do my webinars, and it was every night, back to back to back to back, never gave an excuse for it. When I asked him to do the trainings, he was on every training. All the way up, he was on every training that we asked him. Then we talked about going to D.C. My partners Warren Freeman and also Thomas Woodrow, they went to the meeting. Ken did the presentation. They were there early helping to set up the chairs. I asked him to go to Columbia. I didn't know what he was going through. He didn't act like he was going through anything. But he went to Columbia. Up there with Searson, Pastor Searson. You had Sam Smith. You had the Turners up there. And they showed up and he gave them everything he got. He had to one point told him to turn the cameras off, and Ken will get real with you. Because everything, see, the movement sometimes cannot be televised. Are y'all follow me? So he would turn the cameras off and go work with them. And when they called back, they called me back, blown away. Then there was a meeting going on in Charlotte. The meeting was not going to happen. Ken was supposed to be at a basketball game with his son. I didn't know that. but he rearranged his schedule to drive from Atlanta to Charlotte to do the meet. Kevin and Joanna Ali was up there, and guess what? It showed up for them, and they now present and do a lot of the things he does because he showed up then and went to the basketball game now. So I don't listen to any excuses that any doggone person is going to tell me about who passed or this or that when a man is fighting for his life and at the same time out producing 99.9% of the people.
Wow. Wow.
So, all I gotta say to you is I'm gonna say it to you in one phrase. We ain't got a lot of Nikes, but we got a lot of checks. Some of y'all will get that later on. So it's about winning, and whatever you gotta do, leave it out. Follow the example for what they laid in place. Because when we did an event in Atlanta like this, he couldn't be there. He was on an oxygen tank. Do y'all know he was calling me and we talked 5 or 6 times, giving me a game plan. Hey, make sure this is done. Hey, do this and do that because we learn from the same system. So he was coaching what he had learned as a skill set, and he can do it on a deathbed better than some folks who's fully alive. Some people over the age 21 dead, they just ain't failed yet. He did more living with what he had because he brought it to the table as a champion and never gave an excuse. And excuses don't count in the big leagues.
Okay. Bermuda, amazing. Everything that everyone can share. By the way, all these guys we're on trips with them. It was incredible the experience that we've had with Ken Robinson. Can you just tell everyone, recap anything that you might have thought of missed, any sacrifices you saw him make for his family, anything you want to tell them about Ken that might set them on a path to make this happen for their family?
Well, first of all, we were just very fortunate to have been personally sponsored by Ken. I mean, he was just a genius in my eyes. He was very knowledgeable. He was very wise. I mean, that doesn't come in every person. But one reason I say he's so wise, like, you know, people have different personalities, and you know, you have to reach them in certain kinds of ways. I'm an analytical person. I have a degree in math. And so I would call Ken and ask questions about certain things. And normally it would be part of the system, like, you know, you're telling somebody to do the process, something like that. But he knew to come to me a different way. He taught me how to master those reports in the back office. And that to me was, that was everything for me. I mean, he only had to tell me one time, okay, show me one time. But he knew what I needed. I have to, me personally, I just had to understand, why is this happening to this leg? Or why is this happening to that leg? And we still did everything else. But I needed that. He was very wise, and he knew how to deal with people. No question, any question I ever asked him, no question, no matter what the question was. He always had the right answer. So I miss being able to just pick up the phone and call. Because out of all the people I know, I would say, Ken would know how to say what to do. I would always say Ken would know exactly what to do. It was just amazing. And so that's what I miss about Ken, our conversations 2 or 3 times a week. He was just a brilliant person.
So in closing, I just want you to know he didn't tell one single person except for his wife and his kids, and he told Steve and I, and he says, please do not tell a single person. So if you are on his team, don't be angry, don't be upset, because there was a reason. If he would have told you, all you would have done is said, how are you feeling? What would that have done? That's why he lived 2 years. What an amazing individual. And the last thing I want to leave you with, because he got up and he ran, and he didn't feel sorry for himself, as he's throwing up in a bucket, then he's doing a Zoom, then he's throwing up in a bucket, then he's doing a meeting. Listen, he got up and ran and built this business and left a legacy for his family. So I don't know what you're going through, but stop it. Stop it. You have to get yourself together. You got to get up and you got to move, because in this business, when he passed, he is in heaven. He accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior 14 days before he passed away. 14 days. Don't feel sorry for him. Don't feel sorry for him. He's in heaven. away as an engineer, the pay stops. But in LifeWave, it keeps coming. We will never forget Kenneth Torrey Robinson, and I just love my Kennenisms. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.